recorded. Yep, right, yeah, that's good. All right, guys. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Energy Savers webinar. Today's webinar is on talking tariffs, and we're joined by a couple of guests here today, Bonson Lam from Ergon and Carolina from Queensland Farmers Federation. Just to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, so yeah, it should be an interesting topic for you guys. And if you have any questions throughout, just drop it in the chat and we can go from there. We can answer your questions either now or later, depending on the topic you discussed. So just a little bit of introduction on the webinar today and the Energy Savers program. Energy Savers program was delivered by QFF in conjunction with industry members, looking at energy efficiency on farms throughout Queensland. There was 180 on-farm energy audits. These audits also looked at tariff reviews along with energy savings on particular infrastructure on site. So that could be refrigeration, pumping systems, irrigation design, and all the likes. During that process, the tariff reviews covered, I guess, the old agreement, tariff agreements. So today is bringing a bit of light on what changes have taken place, and I guess looking at a few case studies on how you can potentially save money on farms. So first up, we'll have Carolina, just giving us a brief introduction about herself and the project that she's involved in how we can assist you or you can assist us in the design process of tariffs. After that, Bonson will be speaking. Bronson's from Ergon Retail Department. He's involved in, I guess, tariff reviews, some of the pricing structure involved in Ergon land. His presentation will discuss Etas, the Tariff Assistance Scheme, some drought waivers, some case studies on pumping, and a little bit about solar. So his topic will be quite interesting. He's got some great information in there, so sit tight. But first up, we'll just have Carolina give a brief introduction, and yeah, thank you. Over to you, Carolina.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you can find some helpful information here. Well, regarding electricity tariffs, it is well known that since they have a complex configuration and are modified annually, it is difficult for consumers to find the optimal option with the lower costs. In the case of farmers, the seasonality of electricity consumption and the multiplicity of meters make this process even more difficult. Having the optimal tariff option can make a big difference. For example, Mariva Banana Farm have saved over $20,000 per year, which is more than 20% of its electricity costs, by switching from a demand tariff to a irrigation tariff, which was identified as the most optimal option considering the energy usage patterns of the farm. However, it's important to assess these options annually, considering the changes in energy use and the tariff prices that change and are being updated every year. That is why at QFF, we are conducting a research project together with the University of Queensland, focused on understanding the impacts of electricity tariffs on agricultural operations and the barriers to accessing the optimal option, aiming to assist farmers when tariff switching. Understanding how farmers choose tariffs make it possible to develop tools to better assist them in the decision-making process, helping save money and, most importantly, improve productivity. At the same time, the results of this study will support QFF submissions on energy regulations to promote better inclusion of farmer needs in the design of more flexible tariffs. The project target is to interview 70 farmers from Queensland and New South Wales to understand their energy use, energy issues, and needs based on their electricity tariffs, including solar or battery systems, if any. Can you pass the slide, please? To sweeten the deal, the participants will receive a $40 gift card as thanks for their participation. If you're interested in participating and contributing to having more suitable tariffs and deals for farmers, please copy the link here on the slide or scan the QR code and fill in some details so we can contact you to have a 30-40 minutes interview. And you can provide us your real case experience about the electricity tariffs to support this study. If you have any questions, please email me at the address on the slide as well, and I can provide you with all the information you need. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thanks for that, Carolina. That gives a brief introduction of the importance of tariffs. And that'll prove to be a great little project. We hope to get you guys on board and yeah, give some feedback to us so we can pass that on to Ergon and help provide some changes, I guess, for you guys to reduce costs and make it a little bit easier for you guys to understand the tariffs or to switch to tariffs. Next up, we've got Bonson from Ergon. Bonson's going to dive a little bit deeper onto tariffs, and he's got a great presentation prepared for us. So I might hand over to Bonson, where he'll give a quick introduction about his background, and he'll kick off with the presentation that he's helped us out with here today.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Bonson Lam. I'm the pricing manager for Ergon Energy Retail. Great to meet all of you online today. I've worked for a number of years in Ergon Energy Retail and previously in other states in energy. I spent a fair bit of time at previous agricultural forums where I've caught up with both peak bodies, government, and other parts of the industry. And some of you I may have met in person in some of the various on-site activities that we had with town halls and so forth. So now that we are entering into November, I think it's quite timely to review some of the things that have happened in the regulated tariff space and what opportunities as well as watch-outs that you may need to consider. So I'd just like to go through this timeline as to what has happened over the last few months and also leading into the new year. Each year, as Caroline talked about, there's an annual price change which came out on the 16th of June from the Queensland Competition Authority. So that's what QCA is. There are quite a large number of tariff options that are now available. Some you may not be so familiar with, and I'd like to talk through some of that today. Also in June, we had a program which is funded by the Queensland Government called Etas. It's called the Electricity Tariff Adjustment Scheme. It was basically to help customers who are significantly worse off with rebate, and that was completed in June, and customers who were on it were given letters about Etas in July. The other thing that we want to be quite clear about is for July, for quite a large number of our customers in regional Queensland, so basically areas outside Southeast Queensland who are on obsolete tariffs, they were moved to a standard tariff, and depending on whether you have a quarterly or a monthly bill, those impacts will start flowing through in the July to September period. And then in the September to December period, that's when your entire bill cycle is on the new standard tariff. One thing that I want to call out as we hit November and December is many farmers do start irrigating who have summer irrigation cycles. And for many of these customers who have a demand tariff, and this is really talking to customers who have large NIMIs, those who use more than 100 megawatt hours a year, demand tariffs do work quite differently to the obsolete tariffs. And so it's very important to understand what your maximum demand is, how demand is calculated, and so how we can optimize and minimize your demand to get maximum value from these new tariffs. The other thing I just want to call out in the last arrow is really take this opportunity to think through your future usage requirements. They may be different to last year, so where they are different or where you've seen these new tariffs and they are potentially better for you or more suitable, then take that into account and feel free to go to Energy Analysis, which is our online tool, or call us to have a discussion as to what tariff is best for you. So for today, I just really want to go through in my agenda items that you should consider now, and also items that you should consider going forward. As I mentioned earlier, move from obsolete to standard tariffs happened in July. Secondly, Etas came through in July as well, which is for those who are significantly worse off. Those who are not significantly worse off didn't get Etas, but it's something that we've calculated and in accordance with the Gazette and had provided to you in July. One item I want to call through as well is even though there is a general reduction in standard tariff rates, some customers will still get a bill increase, and I'll go through some examples as to why that could be the case. So the take-home items are stuff you can see on the right. Really, take this time to assess future usage and then make any tariff changes once you've taken that into account. The Etas rebate, which does appear as a line item on the bill, you don't have to apply for it. That rebate is designed so if you want to, you can use it to invest in energy efficiency or operational changes. The idea is once Etas runs out, then the payback from those investments will start helping you in getting value for money, or better value for money from your electricity bill. The third point in relation to potentially some customers getting a bill increase either already or next year is to really understand what that is and to budget and plan appropriately, so it doesn't come as a surprise. The items to consider in the next 3 months, as mentioned earlier, those that are going into irrigation season in summer and a large customer on demand tariff, really take this time to understand how demand works. We've got a case study later on in this webinar to talk through that, as well as links to other webinars that I've done, which gives you a more detailed explanation about demand tariffs. The second thing that I'll go through is solar. So many customers are considering solar. So I'll give you a case study as to what happened with one customer and whether that may apply to you in relation to doing homework in relation to solar. So I'll just go into the next agenda item, which is a bit of a deeper dive into the move from obsolete to standard tariffs and considering some of the new tariff options. So one of the things that I really want to call out here is we do have some new time of use tariffs, which are actually more attractive in the time periods than the obsolete time of use tariffs. So many customers on this webinar have been on one of the obsolete peak off peak tariffs, such as 62 or now replaced with 62A or 22L. That had a very long peak period from 9 AM 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. So effectively 14 hours each weekday, making it quite difficult for many customers to avoid using in that period. Where we're going to is with the new tariffs 22B and 50A, which you can see in the green box. It's got a much shorter period, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. And so therefore, the old peak period of 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. is now flipped from peak to off-peak. So for certain customers who can use more of that electricity in the daylight period, that is an option that you like to consider to have a lower tariff and a lower bill. The thing that I want to call out with 22B and 50A is customers need a digital or smart meter to access those tariffs. So if you don't have a digital or smart meter, then you'll need to upgrade to a smart meter or digital meter to access tariffs 22B or 50A. If you choose that tariff, it will automatically kick off that process. We'll do that for you. Obviously, the meter exchange itself is free of charge. However, if there's a switchboard upgrade required, then it will be at the customer's cost. So if you are considering it, then feel free to give us a call or talk to your electrician to see whether that's required and get a quote so you understand the costs associated with these switchboard upgrades. Lastly, if you do have a digital meter, we can calculate these different bill options like 62A versus 22B, for example, in energy analysis. The beauty of having a digital meter is that we have half-hour data, so basically 12 a.m. to 12:30, 12:30 to 1 o'clock, and so forth throughout the day, and then we can more accurately calculate your tariff comparisons on some of these new time use tariffs. This slide I just want to go through is to compare Tariff 62A, which many customers are on, against some of the standard tariffs. 62A has the same structure as Tariff 62. So basically what I've done is broken down on the left the different time periods. For example, starting 12 a.m. to 7 a.m., which is your overnight off-peak, and then working through the different peak periods on 62A, and then ending with the late evening off-peak period. So 62A does have slightly higher rates than 62. However, the overnight periods is still quite a low usage rate at 16.7 cents. So customers who exclusively use overnight, 62A is a very good option. It's even cheaper than 22B, which is 21.657 cents, which you can see on the second column from the right. The other thing I want to go through, which I talked through in the last slide, is that during the midday period, so calling out the 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. period, instead of paying 52 cents or 52.9 cents on 62A, you only pay 18.6 cents on 22B. So definitely customers who can use energy during the midday period, 22B is a good option. If on the other hand, you use 24 hours a day, or you don't have certainty whether you're going to use during daytime or nighttime, Tariff 20 is an option. Many customers are on Tariff 20, so it is a very popular tariff. It's got a flat rate of 22.551 cents. Oops, sorry. Which is a bit higher than your off-peak on the time use tariffs, but much lower than your peak rates. So Tariff 20 could be an option for some customers. And then the last thing that I want to go through is Tariff 34, which you can see on the right. Tariff 34 is a control load tariff, which means it can be turned off for up to 6 hours a day. Those who are connected to a dynamic control circuit, which is available with a lookup tool on the Ergon Energy Network site to see whether you're eligible for dynamic control or not. They historically have been turned off much less frequently than daily. So certain areas it's been only turned off 10 times in the last 12 months. So most of the time you're going to have electricity on and pay a much lower usage rate of 16 cents. We do want to call out that, you know, historical outage periods may not reflect future outage periods, but, you know, happy to provide historical usage and outage periods to help you assess whether Tariff 34 is a useful option for you. Now I'm just going to go into Etas. Is this a good point to just check if there's any questions? Or
I think so, mate. Yeah. So I wonder if anybody's got any questions at this point in the webinar, feel free to drop that in the chat. We can answer some of those questions, but Bonson raises some good points there. A lot of considerations with those tariffs, and you know, it could depend on the choice. If you've got solar available on farm, which tariff option that you might want to go for, or if you want continuity of supply, or depending when you're irrigating, there's quite a few considerations there. So it can make it difficult to choose tariffs, but we're always here to, I guess, reach out to and discuss some of those options with you. So we haven't had any questions pop into the chat just yet. Someone's typing.
the other thing I add is, yeah, so thank you for your question, Jonathan. So the question is there any tool on the web to easily understand this? Yes, there is. So firstly, on the Ergon Energy retail website, we've got a dedicated section for small business, large business and farming customers. So based on that, a lot of this information is on the website. We also got some case studies. So someone who saves on 22B, for example, and someone who doesn't save on 22B. So you can see both sides of the coin. Secondly, the customers who are with us with Ergon Energy Retail, there's a tool available for business customers, which are most farmers, called Energy Analysis. So you can log in, we upload your billing information for you. You don't have to enter that information. It's updated pretty much every time we read your meter. So for digital meter customers, it's updated every day. For non-digital meters, pretty much when meters read for the bill. So that provides different scenarios based on which tariff you want to select. So there's a select tariff option in there. You can tick which tariffs you want to compare with, and it'll provide you calculations. It'll also provide this year versus last year's usage. It provides monthly usage information where available. So, you know, you could compare how much you used this year versus last year, or this April versus last April. A lot of that information, plus, you know, a number of tutorials we've uploaded on the website, which hopefully would be helpful in understanding this. And of course, if you like to discuss it, then, you know, just pick up phone or email us. We've got some email links at the end of this webinar with any questions you've got. Email is quite handy because, you know, you can pre-populate, or sorry, not pre-populate, enter information, and then we can look into your account straight away. So that could be an option if calling us during business hours is not suitable for you. So hopefully that answers your question, John. Obviously, any other questions or comments?
Yeah,
we
can share those links. Yeah, no worries.
Thanks, Jonathan. I might just go to the next topic, but definitely any other questions about previous topics, feel free to put it through in the chat, and at the next break we'll have a look at them.
Yep, sure. We'll share those links at the end of the webinar for you guys. We'll drop that in the chat. We'll just kick off with the rest of Bonson's webinar.
So I'm going to talk through Etas, which is the Electricity Tariff Assistance Scheme. Just to give you a bit of background and what has been happening to date with that. So Etas is a government-funded scheme to help customers transition between obsolete tariffs and standard tariffs. Mainly, it's for customers who are significantly worse off, and the definitions of significantly worse off are on the site and in the flyer and in the link, which you can see there. Basically, it provides a rebate which declines over time, and once you get into either year 2 or when your rebate drops below $500, you no longer get the rebate. There are a handful of customers who got a rebate less than $500 this year. It's just a concession that we got for this year, but generally the rebates are $500 or more each year, and it declines over time in a straight line fashion until it gets to 0. The idea with the Etas, which you don't have to apply for, it appears on your bill, is that helps you with the transition from obsolete tariffs, and secondly, if you choose to do so, you can use part of that rebate or all of it to help invest in energy efficiency or changes in operations, so that once Etas runs out, you've got ongoing savings on standard tariffs. Just a few things to clear up about Etas, given I had a few questions about it prior to this webinar. So firstly, it's based on historical usage. So if for whatever reason your bill increases in the future, your Etas is not going to go up because of a future increase. Likewise, if your bill decreases, Etas won't go down. So for example, you engage in changes in your operations which decrease your bill, you will be fully rewarded for it by a reduction in your bill. Etas won't drop just because your bill decreases. As I mentioned earlier, the idea of Etas is that you get the figures fixed upfront. So by having that fixed, you get some certainty as to what your Etas amount would be, and therefore you can use that amount to invest in energy efficiency or operational changes if you wish to do so. The idea is that Etas is applied for customers who move to standard tariffs. The idea is that when customers move to standard tariffs, they'll be able to use it and apply it in real life. The Etas is about transition to help you adjust to a standard tariff. So therefore, customers who move to 62A, 65A, and 66A, because they have obsolete tariff structures, they don't get Etas. However, customers who are not on those tariffs and meet the other eligibility criteria do get Etas. The other question that I get is the interaction of the drought waiver, or called DREX, and Etas. So customers who get both the drought waiver and Etas will get the maximum of those two. They won't double dip on both of them. They'll just get the maximum of either the drought waiver or the Etas. And once or if drought is revoked in your area, then you won't get drought waivers or DRECs anymore, but you'll still continue to get Etas until it drops below the $500 a year calculation. The way that Etas has been calculated, most beneficiaries have actually agricultural customers, so that's good news. But most agricultural customer NIMIs were not significantly worse off to get Etas. So if you didn't get Etas, it means it just didn't meet the criteria to get it, and most customers didn't actually meet the criteria due to the reduction in standard tariffs, which have made the bill increase lower than it would be otherwise. Yeah, the other thing I just want to call through is the reassessment criteria. So what we have in the scheme is a 6-month window where customers can request reassessment of their Etas. That window closes in December 2021, so a little over a month's time. So the idea behind it is that if a customer's historical usage is significantly higher than 2020-21, then they can request a reassessment. One thing I do want to call out is that high usage doesn't always mean higher Etas. For example, if we compare TAF 62 versus TAF 20, if your historical usage had a higher peak percentage, then Etas would be lower. The reason is that if you can see on the graph on the right, TAF 62 peak is a bit over 45 cents. If you had a lot of usage on 62 peak, actually you would be better off going from 62 peak to TAF 20, which is a standard tariff. So high usage on TAF 62 peak doesn't mean you get a higher Etas, you actually get a lower Etas. The other 2 points you can see on the screen are other examples where high usage doesn't mean high Etas. The other thing, just to let you know, we've had a small number of phone calls in relation to reassessment. So most of them are resolved within that phone call, or if not, within a week. So it's quite a seamless process if you do call in. There is, a lot of calculations we do at our end, but that's our job to help you with that. So if you believe, you think your Etas figure should be higher, or you didn't get it but should get it, then feel free to call us about that. A few other points with Etas: new customers can't get it. So, if someone has moved out in July and someone else buys a property in August or inherits a property, they won't get Etas. The idea is, new customers, they're on standard tariffs from day one, just like any other customer. So Etas is about transitioning obsolete customers to standard tariff. It's not for new standard tariff customers. In some ways, the rules have similar parallels to 44-cent feed-in tariff. So those who are new customers don't get the 44-cent, but those who originally invested in solar panel get the 44-cent feed-in tariff. Maybe just quick check for any questions or time.
Anybody else has got some questions in relation to Etas? Feel free to drop in some questions there, and Bonson will do his best to answer. And basically here, there's a couple of links there that's been dropped in. Firstly, one was on my energy analysis tool. And the second was a link to the tariff project that Carolina was talking about previously.
Excellent. So yeah, do make use of those links there. They're very helpful. I've done the SurveyMonkey myself. It's very, very easy to fill in. So do encourage you to have a look at those links. Now I might just going to kick off to the next section of the webinar. Okay, so the next topic I'm just going to talk about is with this financial year, like, you know, many other financial years, some customers will get a bill increase compared to last year. I'll give you some insight as to why that is the case. It won't cover every situation, but it might cover a situation that is relevant to you. And secondly, you know, what you can do to minimize these bill increases. So for those who have been keeping in touch with the announcements from the Queensland Competition Authority, Tariff 20, which is the most popular tariff for small business and many farming customers, it has decreased by 3.7% on average customer, but even with that decrease, some customers may get a higher bill. Examples could be, you know, where you actually use more energy than last year. So if your increase in energy usage is more than offsetting the decrease in the rate, then, you know, your bill will increase. Example could be, you know, where there's a higher water allocation and you decide to take it up by using more electricity to pump water. The second reason is if a customer is reclassed from small to large. So large tariffs generally have a lower subsidy. So if you're going from small to large, your bill could increase depending on your demand profile. Third example is customers on time use tariff and where you use more in the peak time compared to where you were before. So, you know, by having a high percentage of peak usage, you're going to have a higher weighted average usage rate. Fourth example is if your maximum demand increases each month. So if you know, you could use the same amount, but if your demand is higher this year than last year, especially, you know, if your equipment is not as efficient as before, or you use all your equipment at the same time, where previously, you know, you stagger your usage, that will usually generate an increase in your maximum demand and therefore a higher bill increase. I'll talk through a case study later on how to manage demand, but that's definitely something to keep an eye for in the next few minutes. I might skip to the last point about drought waivers. So drought waivers is on fixed charges. So if the drought waiver on your new tariff is lower than the drought waiver on your old tariff, then your bill could increase even though you're using the same amount. Which is a really good segue in relation to drought. So what we've done this year in July is that if you're an Obsolete tariff customer and you're on drought, we'll move you to equivalent standard tariff and we will move your drought application across. So you didn't actually need to do anything to keep receiving drought waivers. There is a call out that's, you know, different standard tariffs have different fixed and variable charges. So well, drought waiver does cover your fixed charge, which varies between tariffs. The question of whether you're better off or worse off depends on your usage pattern, as well as the fixed charge waiver on your applicable tariff. The other thing is, you know, while there hasn't been too much of a change in the local government areas that are revoked for drought, we have seen a number of local government areas who have been revoked. So recently in Southeast Queensland, we had 3 LGAs. We had 2 LGAs revoked before June. So one thing just really want to call out is, while, you know, we don't have a crystal ball as to, you know, which other LGAs will revoke and when. If you need to change your usage pattern or not. So we've got question coming up, I think, but we'll come back to that in the tip. As always, any other questions, feel free to put through in the chat. What I'm just going to go through a little bit of a deep dive is a customer who uses exactly the same before and after June. So, but they had a tariff change. They still had drought, but then their bills actually went up, and there's a little bit of explanation of why this is the case. So this customer used 447 megawatt hours a year. It's got pumps totaling 780 kilowatts. The usage pattern was exactly the same last year and this year. What the only thing that really changed is that the customer moved from Tariff 66 to Tariff 44. So under Tariff 66, you get a waiver for the fixed charge, and then you get the waiver for your pump size, which is the 780 kilowatt. And so you get a fixed charge waiver of $96,751 a year. On Tariff 44, you only get the waiver on the fixed charge. There's no pump waivers for Tariff 44. So your waiver, just going to go back, is $16,255. So the reduction in the fixed charge waiver means that your variable component really is the driver for your bill increase. So under Tariff 44, your variable component is 160,000, while on Tariff 66 is 95,000. That's why in this situation there is an increase in their bill. Yes, it's true that Tariff 44 does have a lower usage rate than 66, but the demand charges is what really drives a significant portion of your variable charge, and I'll go through an example about minimizing your demand in a minute. So one thing that we've come up with as a tagline is the idea that unplanned pumping gives you a thumping. So especially now that we're going into irrigation season for many farmers, I just want to share some considerations if you're on demand tariff, like the example that I provided earlier on. As mentioned earlier, demand tariffs are default for large customers, so those with over 100 megawatt hours per annum per NMI. The only exceptions are Tariffs 60A and 43, which are not demand tariffs. I'd just like to go through a case study. We've got two farmers, Hugh and Nicole, and both Hugh and Nicole uses a 100 kilowatt pump. They pump 24 hours a day and 30 days continuously on Tariff 44. Hugh, on one hand, uses the pump over one billing month, while Nicole uses it over 2 billing months. The billing month is basically when you're on a demand tariff, you get a bill which is a monthly bill. It'll tell you the beginning date and the end date of your billing cycle. Pretty similar to how credit cards work, I suppose, if you want to use that analogy. So the difference between Hugh and Nicole is Hugh constrained order pumping over one billing month, while Nicole uses over 2 billing months. The thing that I just wanted to call out here is that demand tariffs are billed on a monthly cycle, so we calculate your maximum demand for that month. In Hugh's cycle, he hit the maximum demand in month 1, and then in month 2, the maximum demand was 0 because he constrained all his usage onto 1 billing month. With Nicole, because she had 2 months where she was pumping, she incurred 2 months of maximum demand charges. So in the bar graph, you can see down the bottom, the fixed charges and the usage charges are exactly the same because they've used the same amount. However, Nicole's demand charge was double, or $1,799 higher, because she pumped over 2 billing periods. So the lesson from this particular example is where possible, minimize the number of billing months that you need to pump. So, you know, some customers may need to pump over, 4 months, and they may be able to get down to 3 months where, you know, if they're 4th month, they're only pumping for a few days, maybe bring some of that pumping forward. So you're only pumping 3 months instead of 4 months, or in this example, 1 month instead of 2 months. And I appreciate demand tariffs are quite complex, so I just want to call through some other pointers in relation to demand tariffs. Firstly, as I mentioned earlier, only large customers who are over 100 megawatt hours a year are on a demand tariff. If you're a small customer, which is the overwhelming majority of our farming community, they're on small tariffs. Small customers can opt into a demand tariff, but they don't have to go to a demand tariff. Second point is demand is the amount of energy used in a 30-minute period times 2. So if you have a 100 kilowatt pump, in my last example, over a 30-minute period, you would have used 50 kilowatt hours, and then so 50 kilowatt hours times 2 is 100 kilowatt. And the demand charge is calculated based on the maximum demand for that billing month. So if, you know, between midnight and 12:30 you use 100 kilowatt of demand, and the rest of the month you use nothing, that half-hour period where you used 100 kilowatt, that is your maximum demand. So really the 2 options for demand tariffs is either use nothing or next to nothing, or use a constant amount throughout the whole month. As mentioned earlier, we have a tool called energy analysis, which will help you in relation to seeing more details on your demand charges. So again, recommend you have a look at that. And I've gone through some of these other points. What I probably want to just call out is you can see a few links here for a number of other webinars, videos, case studies, and fact sheets. Do click on some of these links, and some of these webinars do take about an hour, so, you know, grab a cup of coffee when you have a bit of time and just, you know, a notepad and go through those webinars if they're useful to you. Okay, my last topic is solar. Again, I might just double check if there's any questions before I talk about solar.
Yeah, just wondering if you guys have any questions for Bonson at the moment. His presentation does highlight that there are a few considerations in managing your tariffs and the costs. So there is a bit there, and I guess Carolina's discussion earlier just highlights the need to you know, investigate I guess some of your issues around how to manage those tariff decisions on farm.
Excellent.
So I don't think we've got any questions, mate.
Thank you. So last topic from me is about solar. So the reason I want to talk through this is because we had a customer who contacted me in relation to his experience with solar, and there's some valuable lessons that may apply to you if you're considering solar. So with this particular customer, they recently installed a 100 kilowatt solar panel, but did not realise it was eligible for feed-in tariff. So he's in an unfortunate situation where he's getting paid nothing for the solar exports. Well, so therefore I'd like to reiterate the eligibility rules for the regional feed-in tariff. Basically, if you have a solar system with a maximum inverter capacity of 30 kilowatt or less, you would meet the first criteria. The second criteria is that you use less than 100 megawatt hours a year. So basically, small customers can get the regional feed-in tariff, but large NMIs cannot. Some customers may have a mix of large and small NMIs. So my suggestion, subject to other homework, is don't put the solar panel on a large NMI, put it on a small, or see if you can get it reclassed to small if you meet the criteria for reclassification. Third criteria is be a retail customer of either Ergon Energy Retail, or if you're connected to the Essential Energy Network, the Origin Energy customer. Lastly, I've just included a few links in relation to more information about feed-in tariffs. We have seen a slight reduction in the feed-in tariff from 2021 to this financial year. So do take into account that feed-in tariffs can fluctuate from year to year, and take that into account if you're doing a business case on solar or not. There is some work that the Queensland Farmers Federation is doing in relation to microgrids, and so there's some websites available for that as well. Over to you, John.
Cheers. Thanks for that, Bonson. That was informative, and like we just mentioned before, there are a lot of considerations when thinking about tariffs on farm, and it is one avenue to, I guess, help reduce costs, but there is, like I said, there are a few considerations there. Besides tariffs, there are a few other options you can look at. Energy efficiency obviously is one to help you reduce costs further. There's a great webinar coming up with Phil Szabo and Andrew Chamberlain on pump and motor efficiency, so jump on board that. There's the links there. We can provide this presentation when we finish up here. We have a lot of case studies. These case studies are aimed at providing some of the information to you guys from the tariff reviews as part of the Energy Savers program. So there are some great results there. Bear in mind, a lot of that was looking at some of the older tariffs, but also moving off the obsolete tariffs, but looking at the some of the older tariffs that were around before the changes come up. And just touching on Bonson's last point about solar and the microgrids project, that'll unpack a few lessons there. We hope to, I guess, look at some of those cases where there's limited export from some of these solar systems, and potential for these guys to, I guess, jump on board and collate that energy usage and try and sell it in a different format. There's a few regulations around that, but that project will aim to unpack some of those lessons. Just moving on a little bit further, we've got some great info and resources. Bonson mentioned some of the links before. My Energy Analysis, that's a great tool to utilise to check if you are on the right tariffs, and yeah, I guess give you a bit of a head start on your journey on learning about those changes. Yeah, the tariff research program is part of Carolina's work. That's quite important. That just, I guess, highlights the need to give you guys some assistance to look at, I guess, how do we speak to Ergon and how do we approach them to get your guys' input into some of those changes moving forward. All this info is available by contacting us at Energy Savers. Bonson's also available to do some small tariff reviews for you guys if it's needed, provide that extra level of service. So I'm just going to wrap up there and I guess hand over to you guys and see if you have any questions on any of the information available, any links that we can provide. Yeah, just sing it out.
Excellent. And while we're waiting for a question, just really want to call out large customers on demand tariffs. Do consider the next webinar on pump efficiency. That could be very helpful to you. The other thing I just wanted to call out was there's been an announcement from the government in relation to drought changes next year. So we'll be contacting all impacted customers in Ergon Energy Retail in relation to that. There's definitely, if you're a large customer, when you get the letter or the SMS from us or email, do give us a call because we want to work with you to so you understand these changes so you can continue to receive throughout next year, and also, you know, understanding how demand tariffs work, because that's where we're going a little bit more in the future, especially in large customer space. The concept of really demand tariffs is to unbundle the usage rate into the pure usage component and the demand component. So those customers who can manage the demand well, that they can stand to gain from these changes.
So you raise a good point with drought there, Bonson. I guess at the moment they're suggesting a La Nina event, so there could be a few changes to some bills for you guys if drought status is revoked, and will be a consideration moving forward.
Definitely. So yeah, make sure you have your plans ready. I know every year is different, but it's something, you know, what we want to do in these webinars is to provide you as much information as possible so you can make an informed decision. And you know, we've got a question about, you know, how the solar feed-in tariffs will be in 2030. So, you know, very good question, because, you know, many customers do take a long-term perspective when they're investing in solar. I don't have any forecasts for that. It's really very much driven, you know, there's a number of factors. So the supply of solar between now and 2030. So basically, as more generation comes into the system, into the network, if there isn't an increase in the demand, then that will drive the feed-in tariff down. If there's a higher demand between now and 2030, then that will help drive it up. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier is, you know, as customers take advantage of lower middle of the day tariffs, that will increase, you know, demand in that time, and that would, you know, provide upward influence towards the solar feed-in tariff. And then, you know, the third thing to consider is, you know, any government regulation changes between now and 2030. So fortunately, I can't give you an exact answer for it. Yes, last year has been going down. I think, you know, in the future, it's really dependent on, you know, how supply and demand and government regulations play out between now and 2030. I think the other thing, which may be a little bit more helpful than a forecast or lack of it, is really for customers to consider, if they have a solar panel, how much they can use internally, because that's the most efficient way to use a solar panel. So ideally, for many customers that I've seen, you know, if the solar panel is optimized for their usage, then they're going to get maximum value for money. So, you know, if you've got a cold room and, you know, constantly using 20 kilowatts, then, you know, having a solar panel that's under that would be a good starting point. Thanks.
Any other questions, guys, for Bonson while he's here? If not, we might wrap up there. Once again, thanks for attending. It's been great having you guys, and all this information is available from us. So if you need to get in contact with us, feel free. Hang on, we've got another question coming through.
And I think the idea of recording is, I understand you'll send a link once it's ready with the recording, or?
Yeah, we'll send out a little snippet of the event and provide some of those links in there as well.
So the beauty of those links is, you know, if you need to replay this later on, you can, you know, or you've got other people who think may benefit, you know, feel free to send that link through. You know, we want to make sure that, you know, as many farmers are well aware of both the changes and opportunities that we have with the new tariffs. Thank you.
Thanks, Bonson. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.